Hey, everybody. Welcome, 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 welcome to Hidden Horror. How are you guys doing today? So, today I'm here. I'm here to talk to you about Bryan Kohberger's plea hearing. I want to go over the entire plea hearing today. It's about 40 minutes. And then I want to go over some of my questions, my thoughts. Um, as I watched the plea hearing, I was taking notes. You guys know um, I love to take notes. These are just my notes. My unanswered questions, this just went on for pages and pages, pages. Trying to put it in the camera. So I want to go excuse me, I want to go over all my thoughts um, to get them out because we now have the sentencing. The sentencing is here, and I really want to focus on the victim impact statements from the families. And I want to know if Bryan Kohberger is going to make a statement. Is he going to provide any details? Is he going to answer any of these questions that are looming? Where is the murder weapon? Where's the knife? Um, what is the motive? Why did you do this to Kaylee Gonsalves, excuse me, Madison Mogan, Ethan Chapin, and Zayna Canola? Why did you kill these four college students? Why did you target this house? Were you stalking any of the victims? What is your connection to these victims? And just so many more questions. So um, I have a ton of questions, and I'll go through them and put them on here. And then as I watched the plea hearing, I was taking notes. I wanted to see if there were going to be anything that I didn't know, anything that would be new information. And I was really trying to hone in on the factual basis of the plea. You want to know the details so when the killer please, you will know that it's them. They will provide something that you wouldn't, only the killer would know. For example, the order of the killings. If there was something that happened during the killings, only the killer would know that. Some last words or final words from any of the victims, anything like that. So I was looking for something, anything, and it just wasn't there. So I'm going to give you my little brief synopsis of how I was feeling when I watched the plea hearing, some of the things that I took notes on. So I have about 4 pages. I'll be quick and brief. Then we're going to watch the plea hearing together. Um, then we'll go over my questions, and then there's a brief statement by Bryan Kohberger's family. Um, we'll get that out of the way because they just don't want to be contacted. They don't want to be um, involved in any of this. So we'll go over all of that. Okay, so let's start with Bryan Kohberger's family statement, and we can just get that out of the way. The statement is it's on newsweek.com. It's from July 2nd, 2025, and it's titled Bryan Kohberger's Family Breaks Silence on Plea Deal. The family, and let me just share my screen because we're talking about Bryan Kohberger. So let's enlarge that. Okay, as we talk about him. Going forward, I will only show Mr. Kohberger in the videos in prisoner type clothing because he pled guilty. Um, I don't know if he's guilty. I had a lot of doubts, but he chose to plead guilty. So I'm going to only display him in prisoner clothing, okay, going forward. But that's neither here or there. I'm just stating, so if you only see him in the prisoner clothing, you will understand why. Because I'm really telling myself this person is guilty. Um, and accepting it. Acceptance is hard, doesn't happen overnight. It's not a quick thing either. Anyway, this article is by Khalida Rahman, and it says she's a national correspondent. Okay, let's read the article. The family of Bryan Kohberger have released a statement ahead of his appearance in court on Wednesday to plead guilty in the murders of 4 University of Idaho students in a deal to avoid the death penalty. In light of recent developments, the Kohbergers are asking members of the media for privacy, respect, and responsible judgment during this time. Martin Soto Diaz, an attorney for the Kohberger family, said in a statement provided to CBS News. We will continue to allow the legal process to unfold with respect to all parties and will not release any comments or take any questions. Um, I agree. I don't think they should be involved. I don't think they should make any statements or answer any questions. This case is extremely complicated. I don't think they need to add any more because it's hard to figure out what's true and what's a lie or what's been presented out in the media. Um, that's not factual. So I'm glad that they're not going to make a statement because it's just going to muddy everything even more. So I'm glad that they're taking a stance. Kohberger, 30, is expected to plead guilty on Wednesday morning to charges that he murdered Kaylee Gonsalves, Ethan Chapin, Zana Konoto, and Madison Mogan in Moscow, Idaho on November 13th, 2022. He agreed to the plea deal in the past few days, just weeks before his trial was set to begin after his attorney failed to stop prosecutors from seeking the death penalty. The deal has divided the victims' families, with some angry that it will allow Kohberger to avoid the death penalty, while others have supported it. I just want to go back to the prior sentence. I'm going to read it again. He agreed to the plea deal in the past few days, just weeks before his trial was set to begin, after his attorneys failed to stop prosecutors from seeking the death penalty. Now, all over media, people are saying Bryan Kohberger only took this deal to stop the death penalty, to take it off the table. I don't know. I'm not sure about that. Immediately during the plea hearing day, on that day, there was immediately information that was brought out. I'm not going to talk about in this video because I don't want to pack this video with more, but there was some things that came out immediately that really pointed to Bryan Kohberger being threatened, someone allegedly in his family being killed, and then there was an incident with 2 firefighters that were killed, and allegedly one of those firefighters was supposed to be a witness for the defense. I don't know if any of that is true, but I am going to talk about it because this was a sudden change. Um, Bryan Kohberger had just been in court for the alternative perpetrators. Um, so it's a sudden change. But I did want to just state that a lot of people feel he took this plea hearing and the deal to avoid the death penalty. And again, I could kind of tie that into the what they're saying, with his mental health, the ASD, the autism spectrum disorder. I don't know. I'm not sure, but those are just my thoughts. Let's continue. The deal has divided the victims' families, with some angry that it will allow Kohberger to avoid the death penalty, while others have supported it. So if you go to Hidden Horror on YouTube, there's a collection for the Idaho 4 case, and I go over each victim's family, and their reaction to the plea hearing. And yes, some are at peace with this plea deal. Some are feeling that, this is over now. They don't have to attend court anymore. They don't have to have this stress over them. They don't have to see any of the gory pictures. They don't have to be traumatized anymore. And then some family members, they don't like the plea deal. They felt that the plea deal should have included a clause where Bryan Kohberger would have to put a factual basis and reveal details. And then some family members are completely against the plea deal and they wanted the prosecution to seek the death penalty, which I've always said to you, that's going to be pretty hard because most cases are resolved. Over 90% of cases are resolved by plea deals. If you don't have to go to court, it just saves so much money, so much time, so many resources. You don't have to get a jury if they want a jury trial. Just so much involved in a trial. So I'm not surprised that this happened. It's very, very common. I am surprised that it happened at this time. If you were going to plead guilty, you could have not drug this out for 2+ years. You could not have maintained your innocence. You could not have put up the alternative perpetrators, fought so hard in court regarding all of the different and various evidence. But I was on board for all of this time. If you go back and listen to some of my videos, I clearly felt like, they messed this case up. The law enforcement, this case was a wreck. So we're not going to go over it today, but, this could come up again in a future video. But let's continue. The 4 University of Idaho students were found fatally stabbed at a rental home near the university's campus in Moscow in the early hours of November 13th, 2022. The slaying sparked a massive hunt for the perpetrator, including an effort to track down a white sedan seen on surveillance cameras repeatedly driving by the property. Kohberger, who at the time was a graduate student at Washington State University in nearby Pullman, was arrested at his parents' home in Pennsylvania weeks after the murders. Investigators said they had matched his DNA to genetic material recovered from a knife sheath found at the crime scene. He was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony burglary. He stood silent when asked to enter pleas in 2023, prompting a judge to enter not guilty pleas on his behalf. No motive has emerged for the killings, and it is not clear why the attacker spared 2 roommates who were also in the property at the time. Okay, so I wanted to get the article out so we can focus on the video of the plea hearing and also some of my thoughts and my questions that I feel, just so many looming unanswered questions in this case. So initially, when I watched the plea hearing, I have my notes. I wrote the victims' names down. You can see that. I don't think you can see it, but I wrote all the victims' names down. I was thinking about Bryan Kohberger's family. I was nervous, anxious, concerned, sad, defeated, weary, stunned. I was anticipating what was going to happen. I felt really alone. I said, I wish I could be with my community of subscribers, and I made a sad face. The uncertainty, my heart was racing. I wanted answers. And I said, it does not feel like justice. I feel empty and I'm frustrated. I was writing my emotions down. That's a true and fair, accurate depiction of how I was feeling in the moment. So I wrote some notes about the hearing. There are about 3 pages of notes. Judge Hippler is going to, make a statement about how there were calls from the public to contact, him and how it was disruptive for the court staff and how that was highly inappropriate. And that, he has to go off the facts and the law and that he didn't read any of the messages. He didn't listen to any of the messages and he forwarded everything to law enforcement. So, he felt that that was not the right thing to do. Okay. He talked about how he could not force the prosecution to seek the death penalty and that his power as a judge on behalf of the court was very limited. That the prosecutors, they are elected and they decide how they're going to charge someone and the penalties. And that, this plea from Bryan Kohberger, it has to be given freely by him and that it has to have a factual basis. He said that he had learned of the plea only on Monday, and that Bryan Kohberger wanted to change his plea, that he had the right to do it, that they had already begun the voir dire process, and that this is going to avoid a lot of costs and expenses to the court. Um, so Bryan Kohberger was pleading guilty to all the counts, that the prosecution and the defense, they both agreed, um, that, and this is what shocked me. I put a little asterisk by it, that Ann Taylor said she did all of the discovery necessary. And we know this is not true because she had just been in court. She had just filed a motion that I read to you in a different video, how she was not prepared and that she didn't go through all of the discovery necessary. Now, if that is not ineffective counsel, she really just lied. She lied to the court, and the court knows it because she's filed motions stating that she had not. I read those motions. And the sad part is he's not going to have a right to appeal the sentence. He's going to get 10 years for the burglary and life for each of the victims, okay? Um, Sad, y'all. It's so sad. So I just find it kind of like, if he didn't commit this crime, why is he accepting this plea? Um, Again, I'm going to come with a future video and tell you why people are saying he did it. Some people feel like he did it to avoid the death penalty, and then there's a whole nother story behind why he did it, and that one of his family members were killed. I don't know who, and that strange incident with the firefighters and the one that died. Allegedly, he was supposed to be a witness, but I will go over there in a separate video. But I just want to tell you if you didn't know that, okay? That's what's been said immediately the day of his plea hearing. The court can order civil judgment against Bryan Kohberger. In all of the deaths, so Maddie, Kaylee, Ethan, and Zaina, they all had stabbings. But again, I have not heard a factual basis from Bryan Kohberger. He just said yes, and he said guilty. I don't know if that's going to come. In the next video, when I talk about the sentencing hearing, I am going to bring up how President Donald Trump had made a quick, short, like 2-minute video, but how President Trump has implored Judge Steven Hippler to try to get some of these questions answered. He can't compel Bryan Kohberger. Bryan Kohberger has a right to stand mute, not answer any questions. But he wants to know. This is just such a heinous, terrible, vicious set of circumstances where these students were just violently murdered. Why did this happen to them? Even the president of the United States is concerned, okay? Wants those answers for the victims' families. He talked about, the purchasing of the K-bar knife, that there was no evidence of any direct contact with the property, 1122 King Road. They talked about the stop in Idaho. I believe that was in August of 2022, where they have it on video. They talked about that. They talked about Bryan Kohberger turning his phone off at 2:54 a.m. And you guys already know, I believe that Kaylee and Maddie, they were killed around 2:52 a.m. When their phones stopped working. Their phones they had no more usage on their phones, okay? So again, it's just so much conflicting information. They said that Bryan Kohberger parked behind and above 1122 King Road at 4:05 a.m., that he entered through the backsliding door, that he entered and went to the third floor, and that he killed Madison Mogan and Kaylee Gonsalves first. And that upon leaving, Zaina Cornodo was still awoke, and that he encountered Zaina, and that Ethan Chapin was asleep, and that he killed Ethan Chapin. They talked about how each victim suffered multiple wounds, and that at 4:20 a.m., allegedly Bryan Kohberger car is seen on a video. on 1112 King Road. But you already know, you can't tell the color, you can't tell the make, the model, and all of that. Again, more reasonable doubt, but this is the scenario that Bill Thompson put out about what happened. So we're just going along with that a little bit. At 4:48 a.m., Bryan Kohberger's phone was back turned on. That at 5:26 a.m., Bryan Kohberger can be seen on surveillance cameras. That about 9 a.m., Bryan Kohberger returned to the property, 1122 King Road. That at approximately 9:30 a.m., Bryan Kohberger took a selfie, and allegedly that was at his property in the bathroom. Okay. They're saying that after the murders, Bryan Kohberger searched for a new K-bar. He tried to alter his Amazon purchase history. He tried to change his license plates after the murders, and I believe his birthday is in November, so it would be kind of like you have to, deal with your license plate anyway because it's renewing, but they're saying that he tried to change his license plate and connecting that to the murders. Anyway, the FBI, they're finally saying that the FBI conducted the trash pull in Pennsylvania, and my immediate writing in red was, why didn't they do this in Washington where he lived? Why did they wait for him to return home to Pennsylvania? That the knife was not recovered. They're saying that Bryan Kohberger's car was disassembled, and just how it was meticulously cleaned. I would think that it's very hard to get every drop of DNA. But as I told you before in some videos back that I found out, it was rumored that Bryan Kohberger's car was completely disassembled, searching for blood. So I guess that is true now. They've admitted that. They're saying that Bryan Kohberger did a paper on crime scene processing. So they're trying to say that he was aware of how crime scenes are processed, because of his degree and his education. I don't know, learning something and having to actually put it into practice is totally different. People make mistakes all the time. Let's continue with sentencing. The victims, they're going to make their victim impact statements today at 11 a.m. Today is July 23rd, 2025. Okay. So those were the notes that I took about the actual hearing. Again, I'm going to come back after we watch the hearing, and then we'll go over my questions. And at the time, I had 52 questions. Okay. So let's get started. Let's watch the hearing. So I'm going to take Bryan Kohberger off my screen, and we're going to share the plea hearing. So this plea hearing is provided by KSL News Utah. It's titled Bryan Kohberger Plea Deal Hearing. This video is 1 hour and 11 minutes, but we're only going to watch about the first 39 minutes. After that, there's a press conference on behalf of the victim family, Madison Mogen, I believe, and we're not going to watch that. We've already gone over that in the video for Madison Mogen and their family reaction to the plea hearing. Okay, so let's get started. This is almost 40 minutes, so we'll start
expeditiously so that we can avoid those costs and expenses associated with that. Otherwise, if it was not going to result in a plea, or if for some reason the plea were to fall through today, that we could continue diligently towards trial at the time specified. And so that obviously required that we act quickly. And so some folks may have not had the amount of time that we would otherwise allow for them to travel here. And so, again, I apologize for that. I want to make people aware that during the hearing, if you are to leave the courtroom for any reason, you will not be readmitted during the hearing. Also, when we finish the hearing this morning, I ask that the public and media wait in their seats until the victims' families and the defendants' families and others are escorted out of the courtroom before you start to leave.
How Gen X are getting their teenage bodies back.
So this is my mom and this is my grandma. I recently posted a picture of the three of us and people were shocked. They are demanding.
My apologies.
Finally, I want to acknowledge the trial court administrator and her staff, the Ada County Sheriff, and the Ada County 4th District Marshal Service for the huge lift that they've accomplished in preparing for and orchestrating this hearing today, as well as to all the security attendant today that you see, and some of whom many of whom you don't see, with less than 48 hours notice. And so I appreciate the hard work that they've been doing. Frankly, some of them while they were on some vacation prior to the trial starting and had to call that short. And so I appreciate very much their professionalism and dedication. All right. That said, let's move to the business of today. I understand the state and the defense have reached a plea agreement in this case. For the record, I have a written plea agreement which indicates in sum, the defendant will plead guilty to all 5 counts in the indictment, burglary, felony, and first-degree murder, 4 counts. The state and the defendant stipulate, that is, that the defense is not free to argue for a lesser sentence at sentencing to the following. The defendant on the burglary charge will be sentenced to 10 years fixed, and that the defendant on counts 2 through 5, the 4 counts of first-degree homicide, on each count would receive a fixed life sentence, all 5 of those counts to run consecutive to one another. Defendant, as part of the plea agreement, waives his right to appeal, as well as his right to appeal the sentence and his right to seek leniency or reconsideration of the sentence under Idaho Criminal Rule 35. This is not a Rule 11 agreement, meaning the court is not bound by the plea agreement and could impose a different lawful sentence at sentencing. The stipulated agreement between the parties is the maximum on each count. So theoretically, the only thing the court could do would be a lesser sentence at sentencing. But the defendant is not free to ask the court to do so under the plea agreement. Are there any other material terms of the plea agreement that the parties would like to make? Obviously, the plea agreement, the written plea agreement will speak for itself and be part of the court record.
Not from the state, Your Honor. Thank you.
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, very well. All right. Ms. Taylor, have you had sufficient time to discuss this case and all of its ramifications with your client?
I have, Your Honor.
Have you discussed fully with him his rights, defenses, and possible consequences to him of the guilty plea?
Yes, Your Honor.
Have you been able to do all the discovery you feel necessary?
Yes, Your Honor.
And have you informed your client of the...
Let me pause it right there. That's a lie. That is an outright lie. You have not been able to do all of the all of the discovery, the necessary discovery. You've been in motion. You've been standing up in court saying you need more help. It's just an outright lie. And I want to say this too. Something I noticed in the video that I watched, I was on live and then I, rewatched parts of the sentencing a couple of times. I didn't see Bryan Kohberger's mouth move, but in other videos later, if I would see a short or something, I would watch the short, his mouth would move a little bit more. So that was just something I wanted to point out that, pay attention to that too. And you let me know in the comments if you saw his mouth moving. It's very robotic to me.
Importance of providing the court truthful and accurate answers in taking this plea today.
I have.
Have you apprised your client of any and all offers and counter offers and answered his questions about those?
Yes,
Do you consent to the entry of the plea today?
I do.
All right, Mr. Kohberger, I need to ask you some questions this afternoon, or I guess it's this morning still. I do this to ensure that so that I am assured that you understand the nature of the charges to which I understand you're going to plead guilty, as well as the possible consequences to you of your guilty pleas. I want to make sure your plea is given voluntarily, and I want to make sure that you actually committed the crimes to which you're pleading guilty, because I don't want you to plead guilty to a crime you didn't commit. If you attempt to plead guilty today, but for some reason
Right, Judge Steven Hippler. You do not want Bryan Kohberger to plead guilty to a crime, any crime that he didn't commit. So why didn't you get a factual basis from Bryan Kohberger? Now is the time. Now is the time to get the factual basis. We get a narrative from the prosecution, Bill Thompson, and we know some of that narrative is just not true, but he's still allowed to perpetuate the lies. This is not justice. This is why in my comments I'm writing, this does not feel like justice. It didn't feel right. But let's continue. Let's continue, because I was trying to see if they actually disclosed the written plea agreement that Bryan Kohberger signed. So I was looking for that.
I don't accept your plea, then it is possible that your statements today could be used against you later at trial. Do you understand that?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And now, while you're standing, actually, why don't you take the oath from the clerk?
When Bryan Kohberger stood up, it really it just showed me he's still showing respect to this court.
All right, and Mr. Kohberger, just to make it easier, you don't need to stand when you speak to me. I appreciate the sign of respect, but for convenience, you can remain seated, all right?
This is so hard for me.
Before I start asking you questions today, have you consumed substantive questions? Let me ask you, have you consumed any alcohol, drug, or other intoxicating substance that would impair your ability to understand or exercise reasonable judgment?
No.
You feel like you are thinking clearly today?
Yes.
All right, I want you to understand what the possible penalties are for each of the crimes to which I understand you're going to offer a guilty plea today. They include, on count one, the burglary, a fine of up to $50,000 and a period of incarceration of up to 10 years in the state penitentiary. You may be required to pay restitution to any victims of the crime. Count 2, 3, 4, and 5 for first-degree murder. The consequences include a fine of up to $50,000, a period of incarceration of life imprisonment, which is a requirement of a sentence, that it be a life sentence with a mandatory minimum sentence of at least 10 years on each of those counts. In addition, you would be potentially responsible for a fine of up to $5,000 to each of the victims of your crime, to be enforced in the form of a civil judgment, to operate as additional punishment. This is in excess of any restitution or fines that the court could order. And again, you may be required to pay restitution to the victims of the crime. You would be required to provide, as to counts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, a DNA sample and a right thumbprint impression, and potentially pay for analysis of those samples. You would lose any right to possess, purchase, or carry a firearm, the right to serve on jury duty, the right to hold public office, and the right to vote. Do you understand the charges and all those possible consequences?
Have you heard of this brand new product that instantly cleans toilets without any scrubbing? Take
Not
any dirty toilet, pour in.
Yes.
You've heard the plea agreement that I talked about today. Do you agree with that plea agreement?
Yes.
And do you understand the nature of the charges that you've been charged with, that I understand you're going to plead guilty today to?
Yes.
As I indicated, I'm not bound by the plea agreement, but the plea agreement is for the maximum on each count. Do you understand that I'm not bound by the plea agreement?
Yes.
Has anyone promised you that I would be lenient or easy on you if you pled guilty?
No.
Has anyone threatened you or anyone close to you to get you to plead guilty?
No.
Is anyone other than the state's agreements with respect to the plea agreement, has anyone promised you anything in exchange for your plea agreement?
No.
Has anyone told you to be untruthful in answering my questions today?
No.
Has anyone offered you a reward of any kind other than the plea agreement in order to get you to plead guilty today?
No.
Are you pleading guilty because you are guilty?
Yes.
And counsel, obviously there have been a number of motions filed to suppress evidence in this case. Other than those filed, are there any other motions that you felt were available with respect to Rule 12?
No, Your Honor.
And Mr. Kohberger, you understand that by entering the guilty plea in this case, you would be giving up your right to appeal any decision this court made, as well as your sentence.
Yes.
Have you had enough time to decide whether or not to plead guilty?
Yes.
Are you pleading guilty freely and voluntarily?
Yes.
Given your choices, do you believe it's in your best interest to plead guilty?
Yes.
Have you discussed fully the matter of pleading guilty with your attorney, and are you satisfied with the advice you've received?
Yes.
Has your attorney advised you to your satisfaction about what your rights are, what your defenses may be, and what the possible consequences to you of your guilty plea are?
Yes.
Has your attorney done everything you've asked them to do?
Yes.
Are you satisfied with their representation of you?
Yes.
I have received a written guilty plea advisory questionnaire that is purported to be filled out by you. Did you fill that document out?
Yes.
Did you understand the questions that you answered in this document?
Yes.
And are the answers that are outlined in this document your answers?
Yes.
Are those answers truthful?
Yes.
Did you sign the document?
Yes.
And this document outlines many of the rights that you have in this case. Should you not plead guilty, did you understand those rights?
Yes.
They include a right to a jury trial. Do you understand that?
Yes.
They include a right to the presumption of innocence. Do you understand that?
Yes.
You have the right to require the state to prove your guilt as to each element beyond a reasonable doubt. Do you understand that?
Yes.
They include a right to confront your accusers and cross-examine witnesses presented by the state, including by utilizing the subpoena power of the court to accomplish that. Do you understand that?
Yes.
You understand you would have a privilege against self-incrimination and a right to remain silent, meaning you would not be compelled to testify if you did not wish to, had you not pled guilty.
Yes.
You understand you're giving up that privilege and those rights that I've just outlined by pleading guilty.
Yes.
All right, I want you to understand what the state would have had to have proven at trial had you, to the crimes that you're pleading guilty to, had you, if you didn't plead guilty. Let me find the document. Hang on a second here. All right. So as to count one burglary, the state would have to have proven that on or about November 13, 2022 in Latah County, Idaho, you unlawfully entered a residence located at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder. As to count two,
Mia from Illinois just ordered, and I literally want to be her when I grow up. She picked tiramisu, mocha.
My apologies.
the state would have had to have proven that on or about that same date in Latah County, Idaho, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Madison Mogen, a human being, by stabbing Madison Mogen, from which she died. As to count 3, the state would have had to have proven that on that same date in Latah County, at that same address, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Kaylee Gonzalez, a human being, by stabbing her, from which she died. As to count 4, the state would have had to have proven that on or about that same date in Latah County, Idaho, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Xana Kernodle, a human being, by stabbing her, from which she died. And then as to count 5, also murder in the first degree, that on or about November 13th, 2022, in Latah County, Idaho, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Ethan Chapin, a human being, by stabbing him, from which he died. Do you understand those things the state would have had to have proven?
Yes.
And do you understand that by pleading guilty, the state no longer has to prove those things because you're admitting those things are true?
Yes.
I want to also make for the record, the defendant has provided with the guilty plea advisory form a document entitled Written Factual Basis that purports to have the defendant's signature dated 1 July 2025. Did you sign that document?
Yes.
And did you agree with the written factual basis that is included there?
Yes.
So let me pause it here. I didn't see that on the docket, so I don't know if that was filed or hidden in something else, but I would want to read that written factual basis. I'm going to look on the docket again. Okay, so we have a 1-pager, so I will share that on the Hidden Horror Facebook page, and I also shared the actual plea agreement, which I'll bring up once this video is done. We have about another 14 minutes. So let's continue the video.
And then let me ask you, did you, on November 13th, 2022, enter the residence at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder?
Yes.
Did you, on November 13th, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, kill and murder Madison Mogen, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, and with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
Did you, on or about that same date in Moscow, Idaho, kill and murder Kaylee Gonzalez, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, and with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
And did you, on that same date in Moscow, Idaho, kill and murder Xana Kernodle, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
And then on or about November 13th, 2022, again in Latah County, Idaho, did you kill and murder Ethan Chapin, a human being?
Yes.
Did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
I would ask the state at this time to provide its recitation of its factual basis had this case gone to trial.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So let me pause it right here for just a second. So Bill Thompson, the prosecutor for Latah County, he's going to now give a narrative of what they feel happened. Now, when you listen to the narrative, I just want you to identify for yourself some of the things that we already know are not true, and they're still stating to this day that this is a fact and it's not. But let's hear it out.
Your Honor, the organization of the resuscitation is different than what I think the court and the public may be familiar with from the probable cause affidavit and other documents. The state's evidence, as an overview, would show that back in March of 2022, when the defendant was residing at his parents' residence or was residing back in Pennsylvania, his home state, he purchased online a K-bar knife and sheath with an Amazon gift card that he had purchased shortly prior to the purchase of the knife, sheath, and sharpener. Jumping ahead, the end of June of that year, the defendant, Mr. Kohberger, moved from Pennsylvania to Pullman, Washington, which is right across the state line from Moscow, Idaho, for the purpose of pursuing a PhD in criminal justice at Washington State University. The state's evidence would indicate that beginning July 9th of 2022, Mr. Kohberger's phone began connecting to a cell tower that serves the area of the 1122 King Road residence in Moscow, Idaho. Now, I will acknowledge for the court and all present that there are many residences in that area. It's a dense population of mostly college-related occupants. Between July 9th of 2022 and November 7th, the defendant's phone connected to that particular tower during late night, early morning hours, 10 p.m. to 4 a.m., on approximately 23 times. Now, I will acknowledge also, we do not have evidence that the defendant had direct contact with 1122 or with residents of 1122, but we can put his phone in that area on those times. In the interim, on August 22nd of 2022, Lake Tahoe County Sheriff's Deputy Darren Duke conducted a traffic stop in the early morning hour or late evening hours, about 11 p.m. On the west side of Moscow, on the Moscow-Pullman Road. This was a traffic stop of Mr. Kohberger's car, which turned out to be a 2015 white Hyundai Elantra with Pennsylvania plates. During the course of the traffic stop, Deputy Duke was able to obtain Mr. Kohberger's name, Bryan Kohberger, his phone number, and his address, which at that point was an apartment address in Pullman. We then move to the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022. The state's evidence would show that early morning hours on that day, Mr. Kohberger's phone left his Pullman residence, which is an apartment in kind of the central northwest part of Pullman. That phone was then subsequently turned off at approximately 2:54 a.m. and remained off until approximately 4:48 a.m. on Sunday, the 13th of November. The state's evidence would include a trial, video surveillance of a business on the Moscow-Pullman Highway, just across the state line from Moscow. It would show a vehicle matching the description of the defendant's Hyundai Elantra entering Moscow at approximately 3:02 a.m. Compiled surveillance that the investigators put together from businesses and residents then show the defendant's car, the white Elantra, as I've described, circling the 1122 King Road area, that neighborhood, starting around 3:30 or so in the morning. Comes into the immediate area of 1122 King Road, which is actually on a dead end, and then leaves several times. And approximately 4:05 that morning, the defense car had entered that area, was leaving, stopped at the intersection of King and Queen Road, did a U-turn, and the state's evidence would show that the defendant's car came back and parked behind and above the 1122 King Road residence. The state believes that its evidence would then show that the defendant entered the residence of 1122 through the kitchen sliding door on the back side of the residence, which is the side of the residence that would face the area above where the defendant's car was parked. Defendant entered the residence, went to the third floor, and with a knife, killed Madison Mogan and Caitlin Gonzalez. The defendant, as he left that room, for whatever reason, ended up leaving, or the sheath for a K-bar knife was left on the bed next to Madison Mogan's body. And I can jump ahead That sheath was tested by the Idaho State Police Forensic Lab, and single source male DNA was found on the snap of that sheath, as well as blood from both Kaylee and Madison and other trace evidence. But it's important to note single source male DNA was on the snap of that sheath. The state's evidence would show that Xana Knodel was still awake at this time. In fact, had taken a DoorDash order not long before this started. Her room was not on the 3rd floor, it was on the 2nd floor on the west side. As the defendant was either coming down the stairs or leaving, he encountered Xana, and he ended up killing her, also with a large knife. Ethan Chapin, Xana's boyfriend, was asleep in their bedroom, in her bedroom, and the defendant killed him as well with a large fixed blade knife. Each victim suffered multiple wounds. I will state for the record that there is no evidence there was any sexual component or sexual assault on any of the victims. I want to make that clear so there's no speculation. There were 2 other roommates in the house, and they were already asleep. During the course of this, one of those roommates awoke, looked out her door not knowing what was going on, and saw the defendant, who was dressed in black with a black balaclava on, holding some sort of container in his hand. And she saw him leave the house through the direction of the kitchen where that sliding door is that I mentioned before. At approximately 4:20 that morning, so this would have been 15 minutes or so later, the defendant's car is seen on a surveillance camera for 1112 King Road, which is immediately next door to the west of 1122, leaving the area at a high rate of speed. And if the court were to see that, or anybody in this courtroom were to see that, you can see the car almost loses control as it makes the corner, heads north, and then turns to go south on Walinta, which is one of the only ways to get out of that part of town. The evidence would show that following that, the defendant in his Elantra drove south of Moscow. We know that he drove on the back roads because there are surveillance cameras on the main highways, Highway 95, that would have picked up the defendant's car if he'd gone that route. And they did not show the defendant's car on that route during the time. So we know that he went through a variety of back roads in very rural, isolated part of Latah County. About 4:48 that morning, defendant's phone comes back on. And the evidence will show that that phone was located south of Moscow, likely at a side road intersection with Highway 95. From there, the defendant's phone activity tracks heading back north towards Pullman, Washington, where the defendant lived. About 5:26, starting approximately 5:26, various surveillance cameras in Pullman, Washington pick up the defendant's vehicle as he enters Pullman from the south and heads north and slightly west towards his apartment, where he arrived at approximately 5:30 in the morning. Later that morning, Sunday, the 13th of November of 2022, Mr. Kohberger's phone returned to the area of King Road. We don't know exactly what he did, but it returned to that area. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning. It was there for about 10 minutes and then returned to his Pullman residence. About 9:30, the state's evidence will show, evidence taken from the defendant's phone, that he took a selfie of himself on his phone in what appears to be the bathroom of his Pullman apartment with a thumbs.
Excuse me just a second. I thought that the selfie was taken about 10:30 a.m. If he's at the house about 9:13 a.m., I mean, he'd have to rush back home to get that selfie. I believe the selfie time allegedly was 10:30 a.m., but I just want to, state that.
Up. The defendant's phone then went to the Lewiston-Clarkston Valley, approximately 30 miles south of Moscow and Pullman. And the defendant is actually seen with his car at various businesses down there. This area is the confluence of the Clearwater River and the Snake River. Lewiston is Idaho's seaport. Large bodies of moving water down there. In addition to tracing the defendant's activities,
Right
as
there.
I just outlined,
I believe he's trying to insinuate, Bill Thompson, prosecutor Bill Thompson, is trying to insinuate that Bryan Kohberger possibly, and I'm going to say allegedly, discarded the murder weapon, allegedly a knife, in that body of water that he's describing here.
on the 13th and leading up to the 13th. The state's evidence will show that following Sunday, November 13th, 2022, business records show that the defendant began searching for a K-bar knife and a K-bar knife sheath, as the state believes, to replace the one that was left at the scene of the murders. The evidence also will suggest that there were at least attempts by the defendant to delete or alter his purchase history on Amazon, where all these transactions had occurred. Later that week, the state's evidence will show that Mr. Kohberger went to what we would call DMV, motor vehicle licensing here in Idaho, in Pullman, to change his car registration from Pennsylvania to Washington. That's of note because Pennsylvania cars do not require a front license plate. The vehicles seen on the surveillance.
Pause it right here. So allegedly, Bryan Kohberger moved to Pullman, Washington from Pennsylvania in June of 2022. I can confirm his birthday by just looking it up now. One moment. But I believe his birthday is in November, but let me just double check. So Bryan Kohberger's birthday is November 21st, 1994. So by him moving from one state to another, he would have to, during the time his license plate expires, he would have to renew. And because he's no longer living in Pennsylvania, he would have to renew where he lives now, which would have been Pullman, Washington. But I know people aren't going to hear or see that, but I just want to put that, on the record. So you're aware his birthday is November 21st, 1994. Yes.
Cameras of the defendant's car showed it didn't have a front license plate on it. At the time of the traffic stop by Deputy Duke in August, it was Pennsylvania plate, no front license plate. Mr. Kohberger proceeded to finish his semester of studies at Washington State University and returned to Pennsylvania for the holidays. Law enforcement at this point were aware of Mr. Kohberger, had been accessing information about him, were trying to find him. They located him in Pennsylvania, and they conducted what's called a trash pull. During the nighttime hours, agents of the FBI, who assisted immensely with this case, working with the sanitation department back in this neighborhood in Pennsylvania, took trash that had been set out on the street for collection, sent the contents of that from the Pennsylvania residence of the defendant's parents to the Idaho State Forensic Laboratory, where the lab experts there were able to identify DNA on a Q-tip as coming from the father of the person whose DNA was found on the knife sheath that was next to Madison Logan's body in the bed. Subsequently, an arrest warrant was issued here in Idaho, and a search warrant was issued in the state of Pennsylvania with the assistance not only of the FBI, but the Pennsylvania.
I'll pause it for a second. I'm still having a problem with the DNA. There's a video. I'm going to have to just try so hard to find it. I've been looking. It's a video that happened in court about the DNA to just show you guys how weak this evidence really is and what the testimony was in court. It was unbelievable. So I'm gonna try to find it. I'm not giving up. That's still on my list. Put it in pink, hot pink, about the DNA. Okay, let's continue.
Pennsylvania State Police. Mr. Kohberger was arrested at his parents' home to return to Idaho. Upon his return to Idaho, a DNA sample was taken from him, and it matched the DNA found on the knife sheath next to Maddie's body at the crime scene. I can tell the court, the public, the weapon itself, the knife, has not yet been recovered. I can tell the court that the defendant's apartment in Pullman was searched, as well as his office. Spartan would be a kind characterization. There was virtually nothing there. Nothing of evidentiary value was found. And of course, we are now talking 6-8 weeks after the time of the killings. In Pennsylvania, the defendant's car was seized, and it was actually pretty much disassembled internally. And it also had been cleaned. There was a bucket of cleaner right beside it. I think we can all look to our own cars, you know, in those compartments in the doors. We try to keep them clean where you put stuff. There's always some degree of crud in there. They were spotless. The defendant's car had been meticulously cleaned inside. And the state would present to the jury that that was part of the defendant's plan in covering up this. The defendant has studied crime. In fact, he did a detailed paper on crime scene processing when he was working on his pre-doctorate degrees, and he had that knowledge and skill. So, Your Honor, at the end, the state submits that the evidence that I've given just a quick overview of, and that to present in court would consume weeks, which the state is prepared to do and has been prepared to do, would show that as the defendant has just admitted and pleaded guilty on November 13th, 2022, excuse me, Mr. Kohberger entered the residence of 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho. He did that with the intent to kill. We will not represent that he intended to commit all of the murders that he did that night, but we know that that is what resulted, and that he then killed intentionally, willfully, deliberately, with premeditation, and with malice forethought, Maddie Mogen, Kaylee Gonzalez, Ethan Chapin, and Santa Colonel. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, based on the state's proffer and importantly, based upon defendant's explicit admission to committing these crimes, the court finds that.
Pause. So at this point, there's room here, there's space here. Where is the factual basis for the crimes from Bryan Kohberger? Why wasn't that part of the plea deal? Where he really takes accountability for the murders. Where he describes, provides details, information. Just doesn't happen. I don't think it's going to happen at the sentencing hearing either. Let's continue. We've got about 7 more minutes.
There is a factual basis. Therefore, with respect to count 1, burglary, felony, how do you plead, Mr. Kohberger, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 2, murder in the first degree, as it relates to the murder of Madison Mogen, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 3, as it relates to murder in the first degree for the murder of Kaylee Gonzalez, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 4, the first degree murder of Xana Kernodle, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 5, first degree
moving.
murder of Ethan Chapin, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
I got this car recently, and look how much I was paying for insurance before. I used this website.
My apologies.
The court will find that the defendant understands the nature of the charges and each offense and the possible consequences to him of his guilty plea. The court finds that there is a factual basis for the plea and that finds the defendant believes the plea to be in his best interest. I find that the plea was given freely, voluntarily, and was intelligently made. I accept the plea. I direct that it be entered. I'll continue the matter for sentencing in this case. I think it was mentioned on the call Monday afternoon, the defense wishes to waive a pretrial investigation. Is that accurate?
Yes, Your Honor.
The state also?
Yes, Your Honor, the state does not believe pre-sentence investigation is needed, given the evidence that is available. We want to, though, make sure that all of the victims have the opportunity to make statements to the court at sentencing.
Absolutely. And certainly both the state and the defense may present whatever sentencing memorandum and other documents you wish me to consider. The victims will be given an opportunity to provide the statements that they wish to at sentencing. Do we need more than one full day for sentencing?
I do not believe so, Your Honor. We have numerous victims, and we have victims who share unique perspectives on this, and we want to make sure that they all have time to express their feelings to the court. But I believe that if we can start perhaps 8:30 or
Let's pause for a second. So frustrating, you guys. Do you remember in the beginning when Bryan Kohberger was saying that Bethany Funk held exculpatory evidence that could prove his innocence? That was something that was a thing for a long time. I'm still struggling with it. I'm moving forward. Bryan Kohberger has pled guilty. I'm accepting that, but just knowing all of the information in the case, this is very hard for me. Yeah, let's continue.
so in the morning that we should be able to complete it all in one day.
Defense agree with that in terms of the time frame?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. So as it happens, we have some time reserved in this case in July and August. The week of July 22nd is available. I don't know if that's too soon for the parties or the next week, the week of August 4 is available. Any preference?
Your Honor, we're prepared as soon as the court wants to schedule it.
The state, I believe, would be prepared on the 22nd. We've told the victims' families that we're looking at approximately those dates.
All right. So because of the plan to bring in so many jurors to fill out questionnaires, I had ordered that no other trials could take place in this courthouse the week of July 22nd. And so we will use that in terms of the sentencing date because of what I'm sure will be the significant interest of the media and the public and the logistics that will be required to make that happen. Without trials going, it'll be a lot easier to do that. So let's pick that week. Why don't we pick July 23rd with the idea that if for some reason we don't finish, we could continue into the 24th. We'll start at 9 in the morning. Does that give your team enough time, Sandra? 9 in the morning? All right. Any concerns with that date?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
No, sir.
All right. Any reason why I should not rescind the non-dissemination order at this time?
You're right. I think that given the history of this case, it would be best if that remained in place through sentencing. So we have time to make sure there's the ability to completely answer questions. That would be the state's preference and recommendation.
We'd have no objection for the order to remain in place through sentencing.
All right. I will, at this point, the idea to keep it until sentencing, which time it would be withdrawn in order to give the parties the space and time to prepare to meet what I'm sure will be the deluge of media requests. That's at least my preliminary decision at this point. We can always revisit if it seems to be, for some reason, I should. That said, obviously, I don't think the defendant, a bond was ever set for the defendant. Were it would be revoked. The prior order allowing him to come in civilian clothes is revoked, given his plea and no longer the presumption of innocence. And in fact, now the actual conviction for the crimes. He will continue to be held at the jail pending sentencing. Is there anything else today?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
I assume that the trial date will be vacated
trial
and those
is-
4 jurors will be released.
The trial will be vacated, and I'm sure that the jury commissioner will get word to those that receive their summons that they won't be required to attend. So
Thank you, Your Honor.
that said, again, if you would all please wait for the parties and the victims' families and others to leave the courtroom before you do, I would appreciate it. And with that, we're adjourned. All right, please.
I noticed that Bryan Kohberger was not in handcuffs, so the judge and the security staff may have felt that he was not a threat. I tell you guys, it does not get easier. Something about this case from the onset it's been so many issues. But let's move forward. Let's talk about 2 things. Let's go over the factual basis and the actual plea agreement. I have both of them. I shared them on the Hidden Horror Facebook page. We can review those quickly, and then we're going to go over some of my thoughts, my questions. So I'm going to share my screen. We're going to go to the Hidden Horror Facebook page. Okay. I'm going to have to actually upload. So first thing I want to show you is the plea agreement. Okay. It was pretty straightforward. It's basically what was said in court. There was nothing really different or special about it. We're going to page 2. Page 1 was just the court page pretty much, and page 3 is just the signature page. Okay. This was signed July 2nd, and look at Bryan Kohberger's signature. Okay. So I just want to go over page 2 pretty quickly. It's going to enlarge it a little bit. And it just says the defendant, number 1, the defendant will enter guilty pleas to all the counts 1 through 5, the burglary, and then, of course, the 4 murders. Number 2, that he will be sentenced 10 years for count 1. Number 3, he will be sentenced to a fixed consecutive life sentence for counts 2 through 5, which are the murders of Kaylee Lasabes, Madison Mogan, Ethan Chapin, and Zaina Konoto. Number 4, the state may seek restitution orders regarding funeral expenses and crimes victims' compensation reimbursement. Number 5, he understands that the nature of the charge to which he's agreeing to plead guilty, he's acknowledging that he has not been coerced to enter this plea of guilty. He's taking the consequences of pleading guilty, and he's going to get the maximum penalties. Number 6, he understands that if he were to proceed to trial, he would have a right to appeal, including but not limited to any issues decided by the court prior to his guilty plea, including rulings, admissibility of evidence, judgment, everything. He would have so many abilities to appeal. And we already know how many times did I say in videos, oh, he should appeal this, he can appeal this evidence, he can appeal the judge's orders on this. I mean, he's throwing away everything. But I just want to show you that. The last thing I want to show you before we get to my questions is he signed a document purportedly that this is his written factual basis, which is basically everything I just said. He's agreeing to plead guilty to all of the charges, the burglary, the first-degree murder for all the victims, for all 5 counts, and he signed it July the 1st, 2025, okay? So I just wanted to share that with you. You can review it in more detail by just checking out the Hidden Horror Facebook page. Okay, I just want you to have that information also. Now, I just want to go over some of my thoughts and some of the questions that I had. So I want to pull a picture up again of Bryan Kohberger. I know we can find him again, another picture. Okay. So after I watched the plea hearing, you know, my mind was racing. I had all of these thoughts and questions and just unanswered questions. So I'm going to go quickly through the questions. I don't know if you have any questions that you have unanswered or thoughts, but I'm going to go through mine. Okay. So I've got about 7 pages of questions. 1, 2, 7 pages of questions. So page number 1. Number 1, I wanted details of each murder, of each of the victims' murder. You know, what happened? Number 2, how did he arrive at the crime scene? Did you walk up? Did you drive up? Did you take an Uber? Was that your car allegedly going around the murder house? I didn't think so, but I want to know, how did you get there? Number 3, how did you enter 1122 King Road? You know, everyone kind of leans towards you going through the rear, through the sliding glass doors. Is that accurate? Did you use the ladder that was leaning against the house? Did you know the combination lock on the front door? Did you go through the back of the house, climbing up to the 3rd story where Kelly Gonzalez and Madison Mogan were? How did you enter 1122 King Road? Number 4, what time did you arrive at 1122 King Road, Bryan Kohberger? I thought the murder started and began for Kelly Gonzalez and Madison Mogan about 2:52 a.m. when their phones had no more activity, but I don't know. Were you there? According to, you know, your cell phone data, you weren't near 1122 King Road when your phone allegedly was turned off at 2:54 a.m. So when did you, Bryan Kohberger, you say you are the killer, when did you get to the property, okay? Number 5, what were the orders of the deaths? Who did you murder first? Is it true, is it correct that you allegedly killed Madison Mogan first, Kelly Goncalves second, Zaina Cornado third, and Ethan Chapin fourth? What were the order of the murders? Okay, their deaths. Number 6, what was the murder weapon used on Kaylee, Maddie, Zaina, and Ethan? Now, we know that allegedly all 4 victims had stabbings, but some of the victims had other wounds. We know that there was defensive wounds for Kaylee. We know that allegedly Kaylee was punched in the face or hit in the face, struck in the face. We know that Zaina Cornado, that she had injuries that were from an edged weapon, whereas Ethan Chapin had injuries from a blunt force object. Those injuries were blunt force injuries. So it made me feel that there were multiple killers. So because you're saying you're the killer, Bryan Kohberger, what weapons did you use on the different victims? What weapon did you use when you struck Zaina Cornado? What weapon did you use when you hit Ethan Chapin? I want to know. I have these questions, okay? Number 7, I want to know details, and I want to know what the additional weapons were. So again, because each victim, they were attacked and they had the various different injuries, I want to know those details, okay? Number 8, where is the K-bar knife? So Bryan Kohberger, allegedly you purchased a K-bar knife. Was that the knife used in the attack? Was there a different weapon? Not necessarily a K-bar knife, but a different type of knife. But where is the K-bar knife that you purchased allegedly on Amazon? what other weapons did you bring, or did you find weapons at 1122 King Road? I want to know that. Number 9, Bryan Kohberger, did you act alone? This is a big one for me. Did you have others involved? Did you take others with you? Did you have accomplices meet you there? Were you already at the house? I mean, I have so many questions, but did you act alone? Were you the sole killer, or were there multiple killers? Because I've always believed there were 3 or more killers. Okay. So that's my first set of questions. Okay, that's page 1. Now we're going to go on to page 2. We're going to question number 10. What was your motive or reason why you committed these murders? Bryan Kohberger, in the news, they have said that you did not have a connection to the victims. You did not know the victims. They have no record of you interacting or have any knowledge connecting you to these victims. So why did you do this? Why did you kill Madison? Is Madison the target? Was she your focus? Because there would be premeditation there to kill her. Was Kaylee the focus? Were you stalking Kaylee? Were you stalking Kaylee or Maddie or the house or all of the girls? You know, what was your motive? Because if you have premeditation to kill Madison, for example, you wouldn't necessarily have premeditation to kill Kaylee, Ethan, and Zaina. That's why you can't really get a first-degree charge for each one, because they don't even know why you did it. They don't know if you had a target, if you targeted all the girls, if you were stalking the girls. Like, it's so many unanswered questions. So I'm going to go to number 11. Bryan Kohberger. We heard again in this video by Prosecutor Bill Thompson, but also in other news, that you returned back to 1122 King Road. Is that true? Did you return back to 1122 King Road, or was your cell phone just hitting on the same tower? And the reason I want to know this is because if you return back to the property later that morning, approximately 9:15, 9 o'clock, why did you return back? Were you trying to go back to the property 1122 King Road to recover the alleged knife sheath? I don't know. Why did you return back allegedly? Okay. Number 12. Why are you pleading guilty now, Bryan Kohberger? If you were arrested in December of 2022, late December, if you knew that you were guilty, if you knew that you committed this crime and you were going to plead guilty, why are you pleading guilty now? Why did you let this draw out for 2.5 years? Also, when I think about it, and I think about some of the court filings and motions, and you were going to demonstrate through the exculpatory evidence that you were innocent. Cyray was going to demonstrate that you were not near the property 1122 King Road, that you were stargazing, you were driving around, you had taken photographs in the past, that you were going to place yourself completely away from this property, nowhere near the crime scene, and moreover, you didn't even know these victims. So I want to know why now. You're leading up to the trial. You just put on the record through motions that there were alternative perpetrators. So why now? What was all of this for if you were not going to go to trial? It does not make sense to me. It only makes sense to me if your family was really harmed and you've been threatened and that witness was killed. You may have done this out of fear of threats. I don't know, but that's just my question. Number 13, did you make the statement, was someone else arrested? So allegedly in the beginning, when you were arrested, it was stated, and I don't want to give the source because I don't know if it's true or not, but it was a news related person say you made the statement, was someone else arrested? That makes me feel like there's an accomplice or a co-defendant. So did you really make that statement? I want to know. That's my question to you. Number 14, did you have a target? Was the target the house? Was the target drugs in the house, money in the house? Was the target a person or several people? I want to know, did you have a target? To me, it makes no sense to go into this property, this house. It doesn't seem like there was a burglary that actually happened where you stole anything. It just doesn't make sense. Number 15, did you know or meet any of the victims prior to the murders? You said you're the killer, right, Bryan Kohberger? So did you know any of the victims? Did you have any passing with the victims? Any social media? Did you see any of the victims at a store, a restaurant, out in town, out in public? Did you have any interaction with any of the victims? I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is because you lived in another state. You were in college, but not their college. And you were busy. You had your teaching job, you were in school, and you had a busy life. And you weren't doing the same things that these younger fraternity sorority students were doing. You weren't even the same age as them or near their age. So I don't think so, but that's just my opinion. Number 16, were you using drugs at the time of the murders? I know that there's some information out there that allegedly you had a past history of drug use. Were you using drugs at the time of the murders? I want to know that. Number 17, what did you do with the clothes you were wearing? So Bryan Kohberger, you're the killer, right? So you had clothing on. What did you do with the shoes, the socks, the pants, the shirt, the jacket, the mask, the hat, whatever you were wearing? How did you dispose of these clothes? Did you burn the clothes? Did you hide the clothes? Did you throw the clothes on the river? Do you still have the clothes? I want to know, since you're the killer, right? Number 18, what route did you travel to get to 1122 King Road? So we all know that if you're the killer, you had to get to the property, right? You had to get to 1122 King Road. So they have all of these ideas of how you got there. You drove there. You're on this camera, that camera. I just want to know factually, right? You want a factual basis for your plea deal. What method, what way, how did you get there? Did you drive? Did you catch a bus, an Uber? I have no idea. Did you ride a bike? Did you jog? You're a runner. How did you get there? And what path did you travel? What was your route? Okay. Let's go to page number 3. We're starting with question number 19. Is it correct, Bryan Kohberger, that you turned your cell phone off during the murders? Okay. So there's been a lot of speculation, and it's still not clear to me whether your cell phone data, cell phone records were obtained. I believe your cell phone data and records were obtained because they went back and they talked about how you were near this property, how your cell phone is caught on this tower, that tower, and all of that. I believe they have the records, but I want to know from you, did you turn your cell phone off? They said that you did. Did your battery die? I don't know. I wasn't there, but I have that question. Number 20. Did you know that you left the knife sheath at 1122 King Road? So Bryan Kohberger, you're the killer, right? You allegedly killed, and I'm saying allegedly to protect myself, but you allegedly killed Madison Mogan and Kaylee Gonzalez on the 3rd floor in 1122 King Road. So I want to know, were you aware that the knife sheath was left at 1122 King Road? Did you know that? Is that why you allegedly returned about between 9 and 9:15 a.m.? Did you go back to the property to get the knife sheath because you left it? Is that true? Did you know that you left the knife sheath? You say you're the killer, right? You should know that. Number 21, were you stalking Kaylee or any of the girls? Again, we know that Kaylee thought she had a stalker. So my simple question to you is, were you infatuated? Were you obsessed with any of the victims, including Ethan Shaver? Were you obsessed? Were you stalking any of them? Okay. And specifically Kaylee. Okay. Number 22. Why go in on November 13, 2022 with so many cars parked in front of 1122 King Road? This murder house had cars lined up. Was it something special about the date, November 13th, 2022? Is that something special to you? There was some other murders allegedly on November 13th in prior years. Were you a serial killer and you wanted to kill on this particular day to coincide with the other murders that were happening in this area? I don't know. That 1113, there were some other past murders. So I want to know, why did you do the murders on November 13th? Okay, 2022. Number 23. Were you buying drugs at 1122 King Road? So again, in your past, Bryan Kohberger, you allegedly had some drug use. You allegedly overcame that battle. But were you there at 1122 King Road to buy drugs? I remember WSU Kim saying that the creeper was there, and that, this all, came about because the creeper was already in the house. Were you at 1122 King Road to buy drugs? Was this a drug house? Allegedly, this house was a drug house. It was a known drug house. I've shared videos from the past talking about that. And did something go wrong? Was there an issue? Was there a robbery taking place? Was there a disagreement about the drugs? Or did you have the money to pay, et cetera, et cetera? Were you buying drugs at 1122 King Road? That's what I want to know. Number 24, had you been to 1122 King Road before? Had you ever been to the property? So we already know that 1122 King Road was not on campus, but it was kind of like the area where the fraternities and the sororities were. They were always having loud parties, a lot of people there. Sometimes they wouldn't even be at the property. So had you ever been to 1122 King Road? Of course, you're not their age. You're several years older than them, but had you ever gone to a party? Have you ever been to the house? I would like to know that. Number 25, Bryan Kohberger, did you intend to commit a sexual assault? Were you interrupted? To me, I feel that that's a possible element of this crime, just on the fact that this was an all-girls house, that the killer or killers may have been there for a sexual assault. Now, of course, we just heard Bill Thompson stand up and say in his statement that there was no signs of a sexual assault, that sexual assault did not happen. But I've always felt that possibly that could have been an element to this crime, the intention of a sexual assault. Now, if you're interrupted, does your rage come from being interrupted? For example, if you're trying to commit an assault against Madison Logan, for example, did Kaylee Gonzalez enter when she's hearing the screams, the yells from Maddie? And this is why your anger goes towards and is focused now on Kaylee Gonzalez. Did she interrupt a sexual assault possibly? I don't know, but my mind goes there. Number 26, did you take a kill kit or tools to handcuff the victims? Now, my mind is going there is because there was some information in the media that there was this kill kit and he walked out with this kill kit. And Bill Thompson, the prosecutor, also said that there was something in, his hands allegedly that he walked out with. Was that a kill kit? And more specifically, did you intend to handcuff the victims? Because you have a lot of people, and if you have to control these various people, are you going to handcuff them? How are you going to control this large of a house, this many people living in the house, 5 people living in the house, plus Ethan Chapin was there. Did you take handcuffs? Okay. So we're going now to page 4. Okay, and we're on question number 27. Bryan Kohberger, did you clean your car, your home, or your office after the murders? So again, we are told that Bryan Kohberger's car was dismantled. What type of cleaning did you do? Did you do any cleaning? Did you put plastic in your car? How did you prevent any of the DNA, the blood DNA, maybe even hair, maybe sweat from the victims to transfer over to your car, your home, your office? Did you clean up these areas? Okay. And did you use any knowledge that you have from crime scene processing? Okay. Number 28, how long did you plan the murders, or was the murders spontaneous? Now, this really goes to support the idea of Kaylee having a stalker, or did any of the girls have a stalker, but also the premeditation. Did you plan the murders? Did you plan to go into this property? Or were you like, for example, serial killer Ted Bundy, taking more spontaneous action and just going and doing the murders? To me, it would be very hard to think someone would want to go into a property that's 3 stories with all of these vehicles, just deciding, hey, today is the day I'm going into this house. I think the person that killed these victims and the people that killed these victims, because I think it's more than one killer, they knew the victims, they were aware and had knowledge of the property, 1122 King Road. And they didn't get caught the night of the murders. And no one called 911. The 2 surviving roommates, Bethany Funk and Dylan Mortensen, they didn't call 911. They did not get any help, any ambulance for their roommates and friends, unfortunately. Number 29, how did you complete all murders, Bryan Kohberger, with no bruises, no cuts, no injuries, no abrasions, or did you have some that were not visible? Now, again, when you were arrested, did they strip you down? They take all of your clothing off and take pictures of your body, your chest, your arms, your face, neck, hands? Because I never saw any cuts, wounds, abrasions, injuries on you. Did you have any? This is also why I did not feel that you were the killer. Or if you were the killer, there were multiple killers and you never had any hand-to-hand combat. You weren't a part of those defensive wounds that Kaylee Gonsalves and Zeno Cornello allegedly had. I've thought that from day one when I saw you. I just withheld it. I didn't say anything for probably a year. Only until your trial did not happen in October of 2023. That's when I changed my position to start attacking the evidence, to start stating what I really was feeling, because initially I was going with mainstream media. But when the trial didn't happen, I didn't want to release all of my, opinions on the case and the evidence. But after that, the gloves were off. I started going through everything and just coming outright with my thoughts. Well, let's continue. This is going to be question number 30. Bryan Kohberger, did you disclose to anyone that you committed, these murders? In my opinion, I don't think you did the murders, or if you did, you had a lot of help. But I don't think you would disclose to anybody if you committed these murders. But I want to know, did you confide in anyone? Did you have a friend, a confidant? Or if you committed these murders with a co-defendant or defendants, did you talk about the murders after the murders? Okay, let's go on to number 31. Bryan Kohberger, did you see the DoorDash driver as she said she saw you? Now, I never talked about the DoorDash driver. I can explain in past videos that it appeared that she may have been under the influence, allegedly. I don't know, but I wasn't going to discuss that because if that's part of the case, part of the evidence, let it come out. But now we're not going to trial. I still don't want to talk about her because I feel that she may have been under some influence when she was in the video. But Bryan Kohberger, she allegedly saw you. Did you see her? Did you see the DoorDash driver deliver Zeno Cornello's order about 4:05 a.m. the morning of November 13, 2022? That's my question to you. Let's continue. Question number 32. Bryan Kohberger, why did you not attack and or kill Dylan Mortensen? Did you see Dylan as you were exiting 1122 King Road? Were you the person in the black that she allegedly saw? And did you see her? And if you saw her, Bryan Kohberger, why didn't you attack / kill Dylan Mortensen? Now, this is where it gets kind of odd, right? I couldn't believe this, and I still don't believe it to this day, that if that was the killer and they saw her, and now we're told that Dylan Mortensen was allegedly 3 feet away, and I'm calling the person an intruder, but the person that had the all black on in 1122 King Road, 3 feet away, and she doesn't get killed. It doesn't make sense. She doesn't even get attacked, and she doesn't call 911, but she's in a frozen shock phase, scared for her life. Doesn't make sense. I feel like Dylan Mortensen knew the killers, knew who they were. I'm not going to go as far as to say she let them in the house. I'll just say allegedly, I feel that Dylan Mortensen knew who the killers of the Idaho 4 were, because you don't see the killer and they don't kill you or attack you. And they're just 3 feet away from you, and they've just allegedly committed these 4 homicides. So it just doesn't make sense. Still doesn't make sense to this. It's never going to make sense to me. It's just not. I would not believe that. But I want to know, if you're the killer, Bryan Kohberger, you were the one in the black. Why didn't you attack Dylan Mortensen? Why didn't you kill her? Did you see her? Did you see Dylan while exiting 1122 King Road? I don't think that ever happened. I just don't believe it. I think it's a lie, another lie. Anyway, moving on. Question number 33. Bryan Kohberger, why did you insist that Bethany Funk held exculpatory evidence that will prove your innocence if you were guilty the whole time? You were adamant that this exculpatory evidence, that these 2 surviving roommates, but more specifically Bethany Funk, knew you were not the killer, and that information that she held would prove your innocence if you were the killer all along. It makes no damn sense. I don't want to get mad about it. I'm tired of getting mad. I'm tired of being upset about this case. Let's go on to page 4. Thanks for hanging in with me, you guys. I knew this was going to be a long one, but I'm trying to do my due diligence. I'm trying to provide you with the best coverage. I'm trying to provide you with all the information, all the details, okay, as much as I can give you from what I have seen in this case, okay? I'm trying to show you and provide you with everything I got, okay? Let's continue. Question number 34. Did you know Dylan Mortensen or Bethany Funk? Did you know them? Is that why they did not call 911? Did you know them? Were they involved in these murders? That's a question for you, Bryan Kohberger. You hold the answers. You're saying you're the killer now. You did this. Did you know them? Okay. Number 35. Were Dylan Mortensen or Bethany Funk involved in the murders of the 4 Idaho students, their roommates, their friends, their compadres? Were they involved? Did someone let you in the house? Did they keep the doors unlocked for you? Did they allow you time to clean up this crime scene? Were they involved in the crime scene cleanup? These are all my thoughts, my questions, okay? Number 36. Bryan Kohberger, were you trying to become famous with this quadruple homicide? Were you trying to become famous? Did you do the murders to become famous? Did you bleed out all of this over this 2 years? Going to court, putting up motion after motion, responding to motions to become famous. This is an awful, disgusting way to become famous. It's absolutely just abhorrent. Okay. Number 37, Bryan Kohberger, have you committed any other crimes in the past, or have you committed any other murders? Are you a serial killer? Is this your first crime? Some serial killers have been known to go in and do multiple homicides as their first crime. This is a big one. This one doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for the time where you have police all over in the backfield. It doesn't make sense for the location when you have multiple cars in the front, and it doesn't make sense for the number of victims. It's a 3-story home with 6 people in the house. Nothing about this case makes sense. Okay. Number 38, Bryan Kohberger, were you involved in the skinning of the dog that was about 2 weeks prior to these murders? Were you involved with any animal cruelty, hurting animals? Okay. Number 39, Bryan Kohberger, were you involved in the stalking incident when someone was wearing black inside the sorority house? And this was before the murders. I have watched a video on YouTube, and one of the sorority houses off campus in the same area had an intruder that was wearing all black. And they could not find the person in the house, but the police did check. So were you involved in that incident? I would like to know that. Number 40, Bryan Kohberger, did you intend to kill all 4 victims, Ethan, Maddie, Zayna, and Kaylee? Was your intention just one? Did you have a target again? I don't see you going in to kill 4 people. I just don't. I don't see it. Your size, I mean, Ethan Chapin is probably taller than you. He's an athlete, more, tone, maybe a little bit stronger. Fighting and having to anticipate killing this many people, yeah, that would have been a challenge for you. And that's, again, why I felt it was always multiple attackers. Number 41, Bryan Kohberger, what happened in your childhood? Were you bullied? Were you ever molested? How were you brought up? What was life like with your parents? Had you seen incidents of violence? How did you get into drugs, allegedly? I just want to know more about you personally as a person developing, growing up. When they diagnosed you with autism, how did you handle that? When did that happen? How did that affect you? How did that impact you? Did you experience some hardships, some challenges, maybe some bullying throughout your younger adult life? I just want to know. I want to know some more details about you that will help me understand how you became the person, you are to this day. Number 42, Bryan Kohberger, I want to understand your mindset. I want to understand how you think. Did you have any battles with depression? Did you have any issues with having anxiety? Were you seeking revenge? Were you jealous of anyone? I want to understand you, your thoughts, how you think, how you respond to things that are happening, stimulus in your life. I want to know more about you. Number 43, Bryan Kohberger, do you have any regrets? What are your feelings about everything? Do you have a message for the victims and their families? What do you think now? After all this has happened, you've pled guilty now, you've, had this badge of shame and dishonor, and you're probably one of the most hated people. You're probably going to be considered a prolific killer and possibly looked into and studied, as a serial killer. What are your feelings now? Do you have regrets? Number 44, are you going to allow people that are interested to study you, to use you for criminal research? Are you going to take interviews? Are you going to write a book? Are you going to be involved in a movie? Are you going to talk about all of the things that's happened that's led you to this point? People are going to want to know about you and find out how your brain works and research you. How do you feel about all of that? Okay, we're going to page number 6. Question number 45. Why didn't you go to trial? What was the deciding factor that made you feel you could not go to trial, or you didn't want to seek the trial? The reason I say that is because there was just so much evidence that was in dispute. Was there something big that tipped the scale for you that made you feel like, you know what, I'm not going to take this to trial, or this is going to be damning? I didn't see that kind of aha moment, got you moment. But I didn't see all of the evidence either. So what made you change your mind about going to trial? I know a few months ago I started noticing how Ann Taylor, your defense attorney, was, more defeated in the hearings and, losing one battle after another. Did you get defeated? Did you get discouraged? Um, I would like to know, why did you have a change of heart and change your desire to go to trial? Number 46. Was there a bombshell piece of evidence? Was there that one thing that led you to say, you know what, I'm not going to be able to take this to trial? Was it the fact that, they alleged that you purchased a K-bar knife? Was it the fact that it was alleged that your DNA was found on the button snap of the knife sheath? Was it that the video allegedly of you purportedly driving around 1122 King Road? Was there that one piece of bombshell evidence that you felt, was there that would cause you to be convicted? Were you in fear of getting the death penalty? I think you were in fear of getting a death penalty because I could just recall how many times Ann Taylor tried to get it off the table and brought it up through court and through motions. I think that was your biggest fear. You do not want to die. Number 47, how do you feel the impact of these murders are? Again, people are going to research this case, continue to talk about this case, continue to seek answers. What do you feel is the impact? Could you have done things differently? Are you taking this as, criminal research? Like, you planned this and you completed the murders, and now are you going to turn around and research yourself and assess how everything happened? What's the impact? Number 48, I just listed some similarities to Ted Bundy. Did you study Ted Bundy? I heard some information that you did. So I list about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 similarities to Ted Bundy. So let's go over these real quick. Number 1, Ted Bundy targeted women. Number 2, Ted Bundy was known for his intelligence. You were also known for being very smart. And allegedly, if you did these murders, you targeted women. Number 3, Ted Bundy made people believe he was an authority figure. Ted Bundy was very charming, not like your personality. People felt that you were like disassociated, and you weren't self-aware, but he was commanding. I think you have that quality too. You say what you mean. So number 4, the motive. For Ted Bundy, it was a lot of control, it was a lot of possession, it was necrophilia. What would be your motive? Were you trying to control these victims? Were you trying to possess these women? But I don't know about the necrophilia. Possibly. Did you climb into bed with them? Did you take pictures? I don't know. Number 5, Ted Bundy, he committed crimes across several states. Now, allegedly, you were looked into by the FBI for other crimes. I actually looked into the other crime that they said you did. I never brought it to the platform. There was a woman that was killed in a park. Her body was found in a different state, and that's where I saw the connection similarity. But they could not convict you or arrest you for that. They did not charge you with that crime. Okay. Next one, a prolific burglar. So Ted Bundy, he did initially start off being like a peeping Tom. He would look into homes. Then he started breaking into homes, and they consider him to be a prolific burglar. Well, in this case, there was some allegations in the beginning when you were initially charged that possibly you were helping someone, and you possibly used the camera system to look into them and stalk them. Is that possible with you, with the Idaho 4? Were you trying to burglarize the house? Had you been to the house before? Had you broke into the house? There were some rumors that you may have entered the property before the killings. during your alleged stalking time. So that was something else that I saw as a similarity, possibly. Something else, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this would be number 7. Ted Bundy, he revisited the bodies of the victims. He would go back, he would spend time with them. Allegedly, you returned to the property the morning of the killings around 9:13 a.m., between 9 and 9:15. Is that true? Did you return back to 1122 King Road? That was something that Ted Bundy did. He would go back and revisit the victims and their bodies. Number 8, Ted Bundy was seen as heartless, evil, and cold-hearted. It's been said about you, Mr. Bryan Kohberger, that you were very cold-hearted, very stoic, and almost like a robot. I know I did not barely see your mouth move when you were answering Judge Steven Hippler's questions. So people may see you as very cold-hearted and dark, evil. Number 9, Ted Bundy took pleasure from another person's pain. So I can't necessarily say this is a character in you because this has not really come out. I know some of the victims felt that you enjoyed hearing about when Prosecutor Bill Thompson was talking about the narrative of what happened, that it was said that you enjoyed hearing about it, like you took interest in it. I didn't really see any change in your body language, but Ted Bundy definitely took pleasure from his crimes, his murders, and I can't really necessarily say you did, but that was something that was reported about you, that you really took interest when Bill Thompson was talking about the murders. So going on to number 49, moving off of Ted Bundy, I did do a video, oddly enough, on the Hidden Horror YouTube channel talking about Ted Bundy and similarities, probably more than a year ago, comparing you, Mr. Bryan Kohberger, to Ted Bundy. So you guys can check that out too if you're more interested in hearing some stuff about Ted Bundy in comparison to Bryan Kohberger. Okay, so number 49, did Bryan Kohberger break into 1122 King Road before the killing? So that was something that was said again, that you allegedly entered the property, burglarized the home prior to the murders. Did you do that? Number 50, the toxicology screen and the autopsy for all the victims. Were any of these victims drugged? The autopsy would reveal, the injuries, the type of injuries, how many injuries, where they were, things like that. We want to know how many stabbings did each victim receive. If they had defensive wounds, where were they? Allegedly, I learned that Kaylee had a broken nose. Allegedly, Kaylee Gonsalves was strangled, and she had defensive wounds on her arms. But according to the Kelly Gonsalves family, they don't know how many times she was stabbed. So the family is wanting those records, those police reports, the investigative reports, pictures, the court filings, autopsies, they want to know all the information, and the prosecution allegedly promised to provide that to them, and I hope they do. I really hope they do. So last page 7, and it's only 2 things. Number 51, Bryan Kohberger, did you clean up the crime scene? Allegedly, the defense was going to put on evidence that that crime scene was cleaned up at 1122 King Road. Did you clean it up? Did you have help cleaning it up? Okay. And number 52, Bryan Kohberger, when you allegedly did the murders and you were inside the property, 1122 King Road, did you change your clothing before you exited 1122 King Road? I want to know. I have a ton of questions, Bryan Kohberger. You are the killer. I want to know, and I want answers, and I know the victims' families want them too. So, everybody, to be fair, I know I'm bringing this news of the plea hearing late, but as you see, it's very thorough. I provided you with the plea agreement. I provided you with the factual basis. I provided you with the entire plea hearing, plus the fact that Bryan Kohberger's family released a statement saying they're going to allow the legal proceedings to go on. They're not going to make a statement. And I've also shared with you all of my feelings, all of my thoughts, and all of my questions. Very thorough video for you. So I hope you understand and appreciate this time I'm taking out. And I am going to come back. I'm going to come back with the sentencing hearing. I'm going to come back to just go over those victim impact statements. And again, I am not letting up on this case. I know that Bryan Kohberger says he is guilty, and you can kind of read between the lines, and I'm still struggling with that. But I do want to still find out, review, if possible, the autopsy reports for the victims, the toxicology screens for the victims, and also I want to go back and find that information on how terrible of a job they did regarding and relating to the DNA evidence, the IgG. I just can't let it go. I'm not going to be satisfied. And there might be a brief video, but I still want to have that as part of my collection relating to the Idaho Field case. So I am going to come back another day to bring you the sentencing hearing. I have to gather all of the information, all of the evidence. I did notice on the docket that there was another discovery request put in by the defense, but it has been sealed. And I wanted to know, up until this, they're still asking for discovery, and they're supposed to have a trial August 11th. Well, the trial was moved to August 18th, but now we see none of that's going to happen. So I'll be back, and I will try to bring you a very detailed piece of the sentencing hearing, and as well as hopefully the DNA, IgG info, and the other two things that I'm interested in as well, the toxicology screen and the autopsy report. So let me know what you think. How are you feeling? What are you thinking? I'm interested to know, of course, and I just want to thank you so much. This case, it really was the case of the century. It's still so many unanswered questions. And again, I am going to bring you the information that I found out about why Bryan Kohberger allegedly took this plea deal. Again, there's two thoughts. There's a thought that he was trying to avoid the death penalty. And then the other thought is he was forced, he was threatened. Someone was allegedly killed in his family, and then while in prison, he has been threatened, and one of his main witnesses was murdered. I don't know if any of it's true, but I think it would only be fair to at least tell you what was coming out the day, July 2nd, the day of this plea hearing. It was explosive. So I do want to go over that, but it's not a priority for me. I'm going to try, I have some information. I'm going to try to find, some more details. But yeah, I do want to go over that because it was all over. That's why Bryan Kohberger did this. I did take a screenshot because people are afraid. People are trying to be anonymous about a lot of this information. They're in fear. They don't want this to happen to them. So a lot of them are in fear, and it's unfortunate. Trying to go back and find a screenshot. Okay. I have. Okay, so I do have a screenshot. I'm going to share it all. I'm going to share what I looked into, what I found, but it won't be anytime soon. It will be probably, I will do that after the sentencing hearing out of respect for the victim's family. I want to make sure I'm taking care of them and getting them taken care of first, and then I will bring that information to you. And that may be of some interest to you know, my community. I'm not sure, but I just want to share all of the information. I don't want to hide anything from you. The case is over now, so I can talk a little bit more freely without that threat of really being whacked, not killed, but deemed or my channel completely taken down for misinformation. So I'm gonna bring you what I found out. It was all over. So I am gonna bring the information. So again, thank you so much for spending this time with me, Hidden Horror. Listen, we have other cases. We have Colt Gray and his dad going, and the trial for Colin Gray is a couple of weeks away, say within the next 5 or 6 weeks. So we have that coming up, which I'm glad to get a little bit of a break because we've had the Sean Diddy Combs case coming and hitting us hard, and then all of this with Bryan Kohberger suddenly happening. So you know, I'll be ready for a Colin Gray's case. Nothing has come out. If it did, you know, I would bring it to you. So thanks for spending this time with me. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for following me. You can always check Hidden Horror out on X. If you need to send me a message, you can always put it in the comments. You can send me a message through the Facebook page. I also am on YouTube. I have the entire Idaho 4 collection for you. I think I'm reaching close to 100 videos for the Idaho 4 case. It's probably 25% of my work. Yeah, I should be pretty close to, yeah, I'm not sure. Let me see. So yeah, almost 96 videos. So I've been working hard for you guys. You guys know why I started this. Man from above, God, the head of my life, told me Bryan Kohberger is innocent. And that's how I started this YouTube channel. That's how I started doing these videos, and I haven't really let up. So thank you for sticking it out with me. Thank you for respecting my opinion. Always being great, gracious. Thank you for following me. Thank you for subscribing. You know, I'm very happy where I'm at. And we're just going to keep growing and keep looking into these cases, these various cases. So thank you so much. Please remember, stay safe, stay smart, stay savvy. Be well, all my friends. Bye, everybody. Bye.